Howdy. Thank you. We're gonna talk about chapter 10 today. Couple announcements. So we'll finish part 2 one day early, and we have 2 options. So you can take the exam on Monday instead of Wednesday, or we can start chapter 11, even though it won't be on exam 2. Which one would you prefer?
I like the second option.
So if you like the first one, you like the second one? Okay, all right. We will move the, well, no, we will not move the exam, but we'll talk about chapter 11. Okay, so you don't need to know that for the exam, so don't worry too much. Also, Emily, she has a family emergency, so she's back to her hometown. I think it's in Pennsylvania, and she won't be here for a period of time. We'll try to make this work. Just so you know that she won't be here, and her internet is not going to be good over there. She says in a rural area. So if there's delay on communication, understand the situation and then try to send another email if you think it's taking too long. Okay. Okay. Okay, so today we are going to talk about intelligence tests. We're going to talk about the history and the present of intelligence tests. Maybe we'll get to the theories of intelligence. It depends on how fast we go. Okay, so now let's do an activity. Try to draw no more than 4 straight lines that run through all 9 dots on the page without lifting your pencil from the paper. And you can try it now.
Like 4 lines.
Okay. Okay, how many of you have it? Okay, 2. Is it kind of hard for you? Okay, so here are the 2 solutions that you can do. Before you figure this out, were you trying to draw within that box? Okay, so that's why we say you need to think outside of the box, right? So literally. So this is called the mental set. And this is the tendency to stick with an old strategy, even though a new strategy might work better. Don't worry about this one. It's a typo. So functional fixedness. This is the tendency to use familiar objects in familiar ways rather than creative ways. So both of them suggest that we tend to have mental sets that we follow all the time. And sometimes it's hard for us to think outside of the box. Okay? And next, I'm going to show you a video illustrate what functional fixedness is and what does it look like in real life situation. Okay? All right, that's for the audio. Okay.
You can take this test right from your living room.
This is a simple game, really. All you have to do is tie 2 ropes together. But the problem is these 2 ropes don't easily reach each other. So that's going to require you to come up with a creative solution. You have the chair, paint can, and a pair of pliers that you can use to solve this problem.
Take a second and consider what you would do to tie this 5-foot rope to this 4-foot rope. Keep trying as these college students also take on the challenge.
You understand what you have to do?
I gotcha.
Tie the ropes together?
Yes.
You can't reach both ropes from the floor, but simply standing on the chair won't help. You're going to have to get creative.
I'm going to tie the chair.
Okay.
Seem impossible? We assure you, it can be done.
Yeah, it's not gonna work.
Do you feel like giving up too? Well, before you do, let's find out what might be standing in your way.
When you're trying to think of the uses for the objects in the room, you have a hard time thinking of a use that you haven't encountered in your lifetime.
You're not born knowing what a paint can is, but over time, you form associations, such as what a paint can looks like and how it works. Object association is an activity that takes place in a region of the temporal lobe.
If we can prime people to think of a can of paint in a completely different way, that can really help us solve the problem instantly.
So, how does this apply to the ropes challenge and the objects provided? First, you have to add weight to one rope to create a pendulum. What can you use for weight? Here's where that creative thinking comes in handy.
You've gotten very close. You're very close.
Swing the paint can pendulum. Then, while holding onto the other rope, stand on the chair and catch the pendulum as it swings in your direction. With the ends of the ropes now in close proximity, you can release the paint can and tie the ropes.
Yay!
Okay.
You got it! Yeah!
Did it.
Good job!
That was not easy.
Have you ever used a paint can as a pendulum before?
No, I have not.
Is it the first time?
Yes, it is.
I need to get in the gym. I did that. Yes.
Congratulations on completing the Total Mental Fitness Challenge. The 2 ropes problem required your concentration to slow down and take in the details, and your mental flexibility to stretch and find a creative solution.
Okay, does that make sense? Okay. Do you have any questions on the fixedness or the mental sense? Good. All right. So a quick question: what makes someone intelligent? What do you guys think?
How, like, I feel like how quickly can you, like, solve a problem?
Okay, how quickly you can solve a problem. The quicker the person is, the more intelligent the person is?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other opinions? No? When you say someone is intelligent?
I mean, I don't really think that's something you can define in such a, like, it's just based off of opinion. You can think that the ability to solve a problem, that can be based off of experience, which is more wisdom rather than intelligence.
So think of a past experience when you say someone is intelligent, or you think that person is intelligent. What were you based on? Yes?
Or their ability to solve problems.
Their ability to solve problems. Okay. Mm-hmm.
I think I base it more off of just knowing knowledge and then wisdom. You know,
Okay.
to solve problems instead.
Okay, like knowledge, wisdom. Okay. All right. I'll take one more. Or if you heard someone says that's an intelligent person, what do you associate that with? Or what do you think of this person? Yes? Okay, ability to pick up information, or would you say learn things fast? Okay, okay, very good. So would you say that scientists are intelligent?
Yeah.
They are? Okay. What about billionaires?
So, yes.
Okay, they're intelligent, right? That's why they can make a lot of money. What about artists? They are? Okay.
Yeah.
What about athletes? Are they intelligent?
Yeah.
Yeah, they need to be smart to understand the rules and be creative on the field or courts, right? Okay. All right. So exactly, it's very hard to agree on one definition on intelligence. However, we can have some kind of idea of what intelligence is, such as reasoning, remembering, understanding, solving problems, making decisions, having knowledge, and etc. So in psychology, we sometimes use this definition as a mental ability that enables people to direct their thinking, adapt to their circumstances, and learn from experiences. It's not like a hard definition that you need to memorize. It just helps you to understand when we talk about intelligence. What does that mean? Okay. Oh, also for online students, since Emily is not going to be here, if you have questions, maybe just unmute yourself, because it will be hard for me to keep track of what you type. Okay, so if you have questions, just unmute yourself. Or if you have anything to share, unmute yourself. All right, so you understand what intelligence is, right? Okay. So the history of intelligence test. Back in 1904, Alfred Binet, he wanted to study how to identify school children with learning problems. So he created this concept called mental age score. So they give children a test, and then they see the performance on their attention, memory, and problem-solving skills. And based on their performance, they have a mental age score. And according to Binet, the IQ equals their mental age divided by their physical age, so how old they are, times 100. So for example, a child with a mental age of 12 and a chronological age of 10 will have an IQ of 120. So it will be mental age 12 divided by 10 times 100. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so that's how Binet calculated children's IQ score. Then in 1916, Louis Terman, he created the Stanford Binet test. So he basically added some items for adults. It's not just for children anymore. So the items include supply missing words for incomplete sentences, repeat 6-digit numbers in reverse order, and describe similarities between concepts. So that's the Stanford Binet test. So here is an original question from the Stanford Binet test, and you can try to solve this and see if you can do it. So an Indian who had come to town for the first time in his life saw a white man riding along the street. As the white man rode by, the Indian said, "The white man is lazy. He walks sitting down." What was the white man riding on that caused the Indian to say he walks sitting down? Can take some guesses. Yes? A horse. A horse? Okay. Any other guesses? No? How many do you think it's a horse? Okay. How many of you think it's a horse after he said it? So y'all, like, first intuition is a horse, right? Okay. Can you think of anything else? Yes?
I mean, it could be some other wheel vehicle, because I feel like
wheel
people
vehicle.
probably know what a horse was.
Okay.
And, I mean, I guess it's the first time that he's ever seen a white man, so maybe at that point they haven't expanded. That's like inferring on other information, I guess.
Okay.
Just inferring off the base of the horse, but maybe like a carriage or something like that.
Okay. All right. Yes?
I was thinking a bike.
A bike?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Could be a bike, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so horse, some people think it's a piggyback. Wheelchair, right? It's possible. So the correct answer for that question, it was a bike.
Yeah.
Looks like that. Okay, so that was an original question from the Stanford Binet test. And next, Henry Goddard, he tried to create this test for World War I military recruits back in 1918. By the way, you don't need to remember the year. You can just use that to help you remember how the intelligence test is developed. Okay. So first, he has this Army Alpha test. And this test is for those who can read and speak English. So in the test, they have math problems, analogies, or general knowledge questions. He also created this Army Beta test, and that's for those who cannot read and speak English. So questions are related to objects, mazes, are in the Army beta test. So now I'm going to show you some examples from this test. So this is from the Army alpha test. The number of a kaffir's leg is, who knows this answer? Do you want to take a guess? 4? Any guesses?
6.
6. Said 2. How about you guys? 2. Okay. Okay. Okay, cool. So it's 2. So they are actually from a tribe. So it's kind of hard to know if you don't know what catfish is, right? Okay. So here is another alpha test. It is better to fight than run because A, cowards are shot. B, it's more honorable. C, if you run, you get shot in the back. How many of you think it's A? No one. Okay, how many of you think it's B? Okay, some. C? Okay, most people would think it's C, right? So the correct answer is A, and no one got it right. Okay? You kind of see the problem here, right? But we'll talk about that in a minute. So here is a beta test. What's missing?
Smile.
Huh?
A smile, like a mouth.
A mouth. Okay, what about here?
Eyes.
Eyes. Here?
Nose.
Nose. A spoon. Okay. Here?
Chimney.
Chimney. Okay. Here.
Ear.
Ear. What about here?
Little squiggly line in the
Okay. All right. And what about this one?
Stand.
Okay. Do you guys agree? Stem. Okay. Here.
String.
Strings. What about here?
Probably the scissors of the knife.
Yeah, it's kind of hard, right? If you never used this before. So they have other tools here. It can be a scissor, it can be some other small tools here. Over here.
Trigger.
Trigger. Okay. Here's another one. What's missing?
Spots.
It's a tail. Okay. Right here.
Left leg.
Missing one leg. Right here.
Shadows.
Shadow. Here.
Bowling balls. Hands.
Okay. So, yeah. Here.
Net.
The net. Right here.
Umbrella? I don't know. What you do.
It's kind of hard, right?
An arm.
I don't even know.
Not very legible.
What about this one?
The speaker or whatever it's called.
Yep, the speaker here.
Phone.
What about this one?
The mirror is not matching what she's doing.
Okay. Yeah? Well, this one.
Down in the top left.
Here?
No, right next to it.
Oh, right here?
Yeah.
Okay. But it's kind of hard if you don't know the backgrounds, right? If you never played bowling ball before. If you, I don't know about this one, if you never played with a doll, or how does that work? Okay. So this is from Henry Goddard back in 1918. So the test was also used for immigration, and it was trying to identify mentally defective. So if they pass the test, they let them in. If they don't pass the test, they don't want them to come to the US. And 47% of them score mental age of 13 or less. And he actually created the term moron. So he coined the term. And do you think that those immigrants were really cognitively deficient?
No, I think they just didn't have like for us, we didn't have background on some of those. And
Okay.
maybe where they're from, some parts, some of the things wasn't like something they would do normally or see normally.
Okay. Do you guys agree? Okay. So if you don't have the background, if you never got exposed to that stimulus, it's hard for you to know what's going on, right? Based on a picture. Okay, very good. So what's the problem in those Army tests? Is it a reliability problem or a validity problem?
Both.
Both?
Yeah.
Can you explain why it could be a reliability problem?
Well, I mean, with some of those, like the pictures,
Uh-huh.
like one day you might, like, because they're based off of knowing information, and one day you might not know, like, what the name of that tribe was, but then another day you might, and that somehow made your entire scale go up on that. I don't know. I guess that was kind of what I was thinking. Also, I feel like it could just be a day-to-day thing with just being able to interpret pictures.
Okay, let's imagine that they do not have the opportunity to learn the tribe, or learn what a bicycle is, or learn what bowling ball is.
Then I would just say the validity, because like it's I feel like what they're asking to be intelligent wise is just more like, have you ever seen that in your life before, and know and can recognize if it's missing or not.
Okay. What do you guys think? Okay. So what is reliability? Do you remember?
The ability to get the same result every time.
Yeah, test and retest, getting the same results, right? So if you don't know those things, the second day, you're not gonna know anyway, right? Unless you take a class about this or you actually experienced it. So validity is you're testing what you're trying to test. So here they're trying to test intelligence, but those are not really intelligence, right?
Or just recognition.
Kind of, like your personal experience. So for most part, we will say the problem is in validity, the main problem here. Okay, so here are some validity, some types of validity to help you understand. So construct validity. This is measuring, the measure is measuring what it's supposed to. So let's say we're trying to measure intelligence. It's a test really measuring intelligence, right? And then we have internal validity. This is the extent to which only the independent variable influences the dependent variable. If in your study design you have a lot of the third variables or confound variables, it's hard for you to say it's actually the independent variable causing the dependent variable, because there are so many other uncontrolled variables. So that would be an internal validity problem. Does that make sense? Okay. And then we have the external validity. This is whether the findings can be generalized to the real world. So does the finding only apply to a lab setting, or only apply to college students, or does it apply to everyone or a larger population? Okay. So do you understand the difference between construct validity, internal validity, and external validity? Good. Do you need more examples? No? Okay, all right. So let's talk about the misuse of intelligence tests. So Henry Gagart, he argued that IQ was strongly hereditary. So it means that you get it from your parents. So he encouraged sterilization or segregation to eliminate feeble-mindedness, and which is a single recessive gene, according to Henry Gagart. Do you know what feeble-mindedness means?
It's like vegetable brain, kind of?
Nope, I don't think so. Can someone want to explain? No? Okay, I'll give you the definition. So according to Henry Gagart, being feeble-minded means the person is unable to make intelligent decisions or judgments. Okay. So the Buck versus Bell law back in 1927, it was that the United States Supreme Court forced sterilization on the mentally retarded for the protection and health of the state. And this actually happened. And the sterilization law applied until 1972, so a long period of time. And more than 7,500 people were sterilized, that we know. It's kind of horrible, right? So that was a misuse of the intelligence test. And We don't encourage that. All right. Any questions? Yes?
For experiments, does that mean like they were like kind of quarantined together?
No, so they actually take them to the hospital and remove their reproductive organs.
Oh,
That's cool.
Yep.
that's messed up.
Well, it's either they remove them or they tie a knot. You understand? Okay? It's pretty cruel. There are a lot of human experiments back in the days in Russia, in China, in Japan, in the United States. And we're going to talk about another that's kind of messed up experiments next class. Yes?
Okay, was it like only like people who like actually had mental retardation, or was it just like if you didn't score high enough on this test?
I don't know the specific, but they had a way to measure people's intelligence using Gagarin's test, right? And then if based on the test, they think that you're mentally retarded and you get categorized in that, then you are. And then they will enforce the laws on you. Yep. So I'm pretty sure that was the test that they were using. That's the most current at the time, right? Okay. No questions? Okay, good. So in today's test, today's intelligence test, we have the aptitude test. Those tests are trying to measure a person's readiness to learn and one's cognitive abilities. And then we have the achievement test. This is to measure what a person has accomplished. For example, I might ask you, what have you accomplished? And you would tell me you graduated high school, middle school, elementary school. Eventually, you're gonna get your college degree, or maybe after graduation, you create a company. So those are all your achievements, right? And we also have the intelligence test. That's we are trying to measure IQ objectively, also in a standardized manner. So when we say objectively, is we are trying to do it relatively more objective than before. But it's very hard to achieve absolute objective, right? Can you think of any, do you guys know what intelligence tests look like nowadays? Yes.
Is it like the STAR test?
STAR test?
I think it's like, yeah, it's like,
It's like the standardized
Oh, kind of. That's more for, not for IQ per se, but those will be more like, kind of like aptitude test. Okay. Yes?
A lot of IQ tests nowadays are pattern recognition based, but like
Mhm.
from what I've seen, with like they'll show you different shapes and you need to figure out which one fits into the like 3x3 pattern.
Yes. So there's not a lot of language in the IQ test nowadays. Try to eliminate that. But also, there's a problem with that. Right? Some people are not familiar with shapes or patterns as other people. For example, I don't know if you're familiar with Asian education. So in Asia, students are more likely to just memorize everything. And for me personally, we had to go to boarding school after elementary school, and then we stay in school for the whole week. We get up at 6 o'clock, and then we don't go home, not home, but dormitory, until about 10 o'clock, and then we gotta wash our clothes, and then we go to bed, and then repeat the day. During the time, we just have classes, nonstop, and then we eat, and all the classes are based on memory. So it's not like here where we're trying to ask you to apply the knowledge to real life. So does that make sense? So in that case, I will be more familiar with the shapes and patterns because I've done so many practice math problems compared to other people. And they might think, oh, I'm more intelligent. Maybe not. It's just that my brain is trained to identify patterns. Okay? That makes sense? So there's still some shortcomings for the IQ test nowadays. It's not perfect. It only gives you certain information. So if you have taken an IQ test, or if someone tells you, oh, my IQ is so high or so low, just know that that's not like absolute information about the person's intelligence. That's what I'm trying to convey to you. Okay. All right. Any questions on those 3 tests? Yes.
I mean, do they still even use those as like a reasonable measure when like, because I know in the past a lot of schools were using like the SAT and ACT, and more recently they've been like, these don't really actually do anything. I mean, I know with the SAT, they had a lawsuit that said it doesn't stand for anything, it's how good you are at taking SAT. So like, how many of these tests are just kind of being thrown to the wind because they may not be accurate measures?
Okay, so that's a very good question. That's related to like nowadays problems. Now you guys are in the college, so it's not like your problem, but still kind of related. Or maybe you have brothers, sisters, siblings. So that's a good question. Those tests, I would say those are more about their aptitude test. It's not really an intelligence test. And in psychology, you also learn that those tests are indeed measuring how good you're taking the test. So your testing skills. It's not necessarily your IQ or how well you would do in college. But one thing for sure is that if you're good at those tests, it means that you're persistent. You are willing to spend the time to learn those because it's so boring. Same with GRE. How many of you know GRE? GRE, MCAT. Okay, so those are for graduate schools. So they are very similar to SAT, but they are harder. So those don't predict how well you would do in school per se, but it predicts how persistent you are. If you're willing to spend the time to learn the boring knowledge now, you're more likely to be willing to spend the time in college to learn boring knowledge, right? Does that make sense? So I think those standard tests are somewhat useful, but they shouldn't be the only measures for getting into college or grad school. And in reality, I don't think that's the case. But that's the case in China. So you only take one final test, and then depends on that test, you get to a good school or bad school. They don't look at your grades, your GPA. We don't have GPA and stuff like that. It just, at the end, that one final test, it takes 3 days. Test on your math, Chinese, English, geography, everything. And then you take 3 days to take all the tests. And then based on the total scores, you get assigned to colleges. So I think in the US, it's relatively better than a lot of other Asian countries. But also, I understand those tests might not reflect how you would do in college. Another problem is that they are so expensive. I don't like that because people come from different backgrounds. If they don't have the money to take the test, you pretty much just block their entries. So yeah, there's a good and bad to the aptitude test nowadays, especially for the standardized test getting to college. Good question. Any other questions or thoughts? Yes?
Okay, so like what, if you said you don't agree like it should be the only test, like what do you think would be like a better like test to like see what you should, or like to get into college, like what would be better?
Okay, so what do you guys prepare when you apply to college? Yes?
Well, I think personally, like a GPA, your high school GPA is a better predictor of how much you're willing to work and how much you're going to succeed in college.
Okay.
Because it's the same thing with like being able to take classes and also get that work done. But I know that there are arguments against that too.
Relatively, I would say, because here, because different schools have different standards. Different schools teaches different things. That's not a problem in China because every school takes the same test. So it's all standardized. So pros and cons. GPAs, yes, sometimes you should also look at GPAs. What else do you use when you apply to college? GPA, SAT, or ACT? What else?
You know, your civic engagement, like
Okay.
the ability to actually be in groups while you're doing all that stuff.
Okay, your activities. Okay. So I think that's very important too. It looks at your leadership skills, communication skills, whether you're healthy or not, right? Whether you're sociable. Okay. So what else? Reference letters? Do you have that? Okay, so reference letters is another good way, right? Let's assume that you're being honest, and the person who's writing your reference letter is being honest. Yes?
Then maybe try essays.
Essays, yeah, very good, essays. It looks at your writing skills. So I think those are something that the school can consider. But it's not like they have the time to look at everything. But I think those would be a good measures besides the standardized test. Yeah. If you have other ideas, feel free to bring it up in psychology class or educational psychology class or sociology class. It'll bring more awareness and it will make changes in the system right now. So I definitely encourage you guys to speak up based on your own experience. All right, very good, very good. Okay, so nowadays we use the Wechsler scales to measure IQ. So we have WISE and WISC. So WISE is the Wechsler's adult intelligence scale, and the WISC is Wechsler intelligence scale for children. Very simple. One's for adults, one's for children. So WISE has been updated several times, and the current version has 4 components. First, we have the verbal comprehension, and then we have the perceptual reasoning, working memory, and processing speed. So those will be the 4 components that you'll be tested when you take WISE. If you're interested, you can also take that here in the clinic. The clinic here is very good for students and the community because it charges very little compared to when you graduate. You go to other places. I think they only charge $5 to $12 per hour. It's really cheap compared to regular clinics. So after you take tests, you will get a composite score for intelligence. Okay. Have you heard that my IQ score is 120, 100? So that would be the composite score. Okay. So here are some examples. In verbal scales, for general information, they will ask you what day of the year is Independence Day. Similarities would be something like, in what way are wool and cotton alike? If eggs cost 60 cents a dozen, what does an egg cost? Vocabulary, tell me the meaning of corrupt. Comprehension is, why do people buy fire insurance? And digital spend is, repeat the number or reverse the number, say it backwards. Okay, so you kind of get the idea, right? It's still not very objective, not super objective, but relatively more objective than the test before. Here are some performance scale. Picture arrangement will be something like the pictures below tell a story, put them in the right order to tell a story, and you arrange them. Block design will be something like using 4 blocks and make one just like this, and you will have something in front of you to move them around. Object assembly is you trying to put them together to form a picture. And then digit symbol substitution, it's pretty much like 1 equals this, 2 equals this, 3 equals that, and then figure that out. Okay, so now you get the idea of what you would do if you take the WISE, right? Okay, all right, so here let's do a quick, simple example. Which one should be the last? 5. Okay, what do you guys think? 5. Pretty simple, right? It's, you're just looking at patterns. 1, 2, 3, they're blank, and 1, 2, 3, they have dots, and then 1, 2, 3, they're solid. Okay, very good. Any questions? Good. All right, I hope it's not too boring. Trying to get more conversation. Okay, question. How many of you noticed the China and Panda pictures I showed at the beginning? Okay, a lot more people, right? Okay, it's for nothing. It's just for fun. So I was trying to see if you guys notice other things after our practice last day. Okay, that's it for today. If you don't have any questions, I will see. Yes?
So which test was used for which group, like for the whatever it's called the Wechsler system? Like there's Weiss, was that for adults?
Yeah, WISE is for adults. WISC is for children.
And how do you spell the children one?
How do you spell it? WISC. Okay. All right. Okay. I'll see you guys on Friday.